Why start a faceless YouTube channel? Well, there's many reasons to do that. Some people start one with the intention that one day they'll get a setup for a camera and they'll make videos where they're on camera. Some people have it where they're like, you know what, the whole time I'm going to be faceless just because I want to make videos. And some people, just have whatever reasons they want to. They're like, you know what, it's easier to start without a face without having like a camera for, face camera, because then you don't have to worry about camera quality. You just have to worry about mic quality. But one thing that's really interesting is that, there's a lot of questions that you think about when you're starting a channel because it's like, how personal do you want it to be? Do you want it to be you or do you want it to be, something that you're interested in? For example, you've got some channels that are like automotive channels, and you've got some channels that are like bike channels where it's like, everything's focused on this thing, and you got some channels that might be focused on more like makers work and different like crafts. And then you have some channels where they're really mostly just vlogs about somebody's days and life, and they're like, sharing little pieces of their snippets of their life. And so that's kind of an interesting thing where, it's like, do you have to know that when you start the channel, or could you just make a channel and put whatever videos interest you on it and then see what happens, Put the videos that you care, like making it. There's a lot of channels, I guess, that start without any direction, and it's easy to start out if you don't have any direction without a face. And then it's like, you know what, as the channel has more and more videos put on, it'll develop a personality, and then maybe, you know what, maybe you do put your face on there, or maybe you do put a on-screen presenter so that way if that meshes with the channel. But maybe some channels, do you really need a on-screen presenter for most how-tos? Because a lot of the how-tos given in that first person point of view are pretty good. Even if there's a little bit of face there, it's not, I still consider them faceless channels like Binging with Babesh because, it's mostly focused on the food. It's not focused on the chef cooking the food. And so it's kind of an interesting thing because it's like, what are you going to do with that option on the channel? The other thing too is some channels have more of a, I don't know, corporate's the right word, but they're more of like a business design from the start where you have a company or maybe even an individual where they're trying to make a company or like a company themed channel, like a Watch Mojo, where it's definitely has a strong theme, but the presenter's not the owner of the channel. Or you've got many of the channels that Simon Whistler uses, where it's like, a lot of those he could almost hire in a separate uh, on-screen talent. But it's kind of interesting too, because I look at the work of Simon Whistler, because he's an on-screen presenter, but a lot of his channels that he runs are more like a business where he's actually a middle manager because he has script writers writing scripts, and then he's got editors editing the videos, and he's the owner, but he also runs the channel. So, well, he's the owner and runs the channel, but he's also the middleman where he's also, or the middle, not the middleman, but he's the, in the section where he's also the on-screen talent recording for a lot of his videos. He does have guest hosts every now and then, but it's an interesting thing because it's like, that's a very um, interesting channel concept because I guess it's proof. And I know one of the things too that's interesting with just channels in general is there's a lot of channels out there that are, dead channels, but they're not necessarily dead in the sense that they're not still producing content. They still produce videos, but nobody watches the videos. And that's an interesting thing too, because it's like, how does a channel lose views like that? I guess is really a question to ask too. Is it that they're no longer making relevant content, or is it that maybe the content that they are making was very specific, and what their specific thing was was trending for a while and then it fell out of trend. And that's a thing to think about, but I guess another thing to think about is, why are you making a channel to begin with? In the sense of, are you making it for yourself or you just want to have a channel where you can edit videos and put them up as like a hobby and just, you like making videos and it's a fun place to have a YouTube channel to share them on? Or is it like, you want to have a YouTube channel, but you're really trying to gain popularity or I guess social media presence, and a channel's another way to do that? Or are you thinking about it more in like not necessarily a business sense, but in the sense of like you've got a company or something that's trying to promote a channel and you're like a YouTube or a social media manager and you're like, you know what, YouTube's a really great way to get some longer form videos about our product out there. And I think that if we get these videos of longer product out there, people will like that, but it's not really about the monetization. Then obviously there is the concept of monetization, but across platforms, a lot of people are like, oh, let's make a account, I guess, and monetize it. But sometimes I wonder, I know there's a lot of predictability factors where if you don't post, for example, how can you expect to have people watch or look at what you're doing? But there's also people out there that make a ton of content. There's a lot of channels that I've come across in my time on YouTube where I'll look at a channel and it's got pretty decent videos and it's got like 1,000 of them, but it's still got a very small amount of subscribers, like only a couple hundred. And you're like, okay, I guess I don't know what is happening here, whether they're just not resonating with the algorithm or whether it's just that something that I'm interested in isn't really something that the majority of people find interesting, so it's not capturing that audience. And the other thing too is like, I guess with some of this stuff, what's the point of having a big plan, I guess, if you're not making smaller content? I know one thing that I've heard repeatedly in different across the channels on YouTube, or is given advice on YouTube. They're like, the first 100 videos you make are not going to be great, and they're probably just going to be very mediocre at best. And so, obviously, if you're making videos, it's like, all right, let's see if I can get to 100 videos first and just see, maybe look at my first video and then look at my 100th video and then see how much I've improved in editing, maybe speaking to a camera or speaking into a microphone. Because I know there's a lot of channels where you look at their content from maybe like a year or even 2 years before they're at when you found them, and their ability to talk on camera and be very fluid on camera with their words and editing and stuff is just not as good as where it is now. And you're like, wow, they really made quite a bit of improvements. And you look at your own videos and you're like, you know what, maybe I could make those improvements and become like these other channels. Another thing too that is very interesting with that is like, what are these well, I guess it's kind of like not necessarily a lottery, but it's like, sometimes the algorithm's kind of like a guesswork because it's like really what people are interested in. And so some people put out one or two videos and they get a ton of views on them and they don't really have any other videos uploaded to the channel. And you come across some of these channels and you're like, man, they really nailed it with the first one and you'd love to see a second one, but or maybe even a third one because they've put out a couple like really great videos, but their videos that they have up, maybe the last upload was a year or two ago. And so it's something to think about, but it's not necessarily something, I guess, at this time that I really consider would be something to change actions or base plans on. I know that it's interesting too, because there's some channels that are faceless, but they still have a face in the sense that they use like a screen art or they use some caricature drawing to represent the on-screen voice. So I guess there's many ways to go with it, and it's, let's see what works and what doesn't, I guess. And I guess my goal for this channel is probably to probably make the first 100 videos and see what happens.